Discover the incredible moment a soldier and his K9 saved a girl from a hidden fire in the snow. Jake's heart raced as he stood on the edge of the town park, a lone figure against the festive backdrop of the annual winter festival. The laughter of families echoed around him, but he felt like an outsider. His loyal K9, Duke, nudged his hand, grounding him in the moment. The air was thick with the smell of hot cocoa and freshly baked pies, but it did nothing to warm the chill of loneliness gripping Jake's chest. He was a veteran, just a few years back considered a hero, yet now he felt invisible amongst the townsfolk who looked through him, their whispers stinging like needles in the frigid air. The park was a picture from a postcard, snow-covered trees glistening in the sunlight, children building snowmen, parents smiling, sharing holiday traditions. Jake wished desperately to belong. Yet, as he watched the wealthier families handing out goodies and sharing warm hugs, he buried his hands deeper into his worn-out coat. The disparity in their lives felt like an immovable wall. They saw him as just a reminder of service, not as someone deserving of kindness or friendship. He flinched at their subtle judgments, feeling like a ghost haunting a life he once lived. As snowflakes fluttered down, things took a shocking turn. A plume of black smoke spiraled up behind the main stage, cutting through the crisp air like a knife. Jake's instincts surged. He could feel panic rippling through the crowd, but it was the screams of a child that shattered the holiday buzz. Young Lily, no more than 7, had disappeared from sight, her laughter swallowed by the flames that roared to life around a shed. The fire crackled, echoing the fears he thought he had left behind. Jake didn't hesitate. With Duke barking at his side, he plunged into the fray. The memories of combat flooded back, those moments when his life meant something beyond survival. He was a soldier, trained to save, and in this harrowing moment, he felt the heat of judgment from those who once saw him as less than but now watched with wide eyes. The townsfolk whispered amongst themselves, some recoiling, while others pointed fingers. But the voice in his head drowned them out, the voice that told him to be brave. The flames surged higher, swirling like demons beckoning him to turn back. But Jake only tightened his grip on Duke's leash. He sprinted, each stride leading him closer to the inferno, where Lily was trapped beneath layers of smoke. The world fell away, there was only him, Duke, and the thundering fire to conquer. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Time slowed as he felt the intense heat on his face. With each step, the weight of the townsfolk's gazes bore down on him. Would they finally see him for who he really was? A man willing to risk everything for a child he didn't even know. The irony gripped him tight. Could this moment of bravery shatter the prejudice that had kept him in the shadows? As Jake pushed through the flames, grasping for Lily, he could feel the fate of not just one life hanging in the balance, but the very fabric of their community. Just as his fingers clasped her small, trembling hand, the world went silent for an agonizing second, heavy with uncertainty. Jake's heart thundered as the fire scorched his arms, but in that frozen moment, he understood. Bravery meant diving into the flames, igniting change beyond the heat of the moment. Would they recognize him, this soldier turned savior? The heat of the blaze wasn't just the fire, it was the dawning of a hope that trembled at the edge of the flames, ready to burn bright. The moment of clarity shattered as the flames licked at his skin. Jake yanked Lily from her hiding place, the little girl's grip tightening around his hand. Duke stood at the ready, barking fiercely, as if willing the fire to retreat. They turned back toward the chaotic scene unfolding outside, the sound of sirens wailing faintly in the background, becoming louder as help approached. As they stumbled from the smoke-filled shed, the air shifted. Bright lights flooded the area, illuminating faces in disbelief. Jake felt the curious, astonished eyes of many town members, the awestruck silence morphing into gasps of astonishment and shouts of, "Is she okay?" Yet amid the chaos, he could sense the undercurrent of judgment. They were still trying to reconcile this brave soldier with the broken man they thought they knew. Jake didn't have the time to wrestle with their perceptions. He dropped to his knees, cradling Lily close, the sharp edges of his reality now more pronounced. Her small body trembled, tears freezing on her cheeks as she clung to him. "I was so scared," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I know, sweet pea. You're safe now," he replied, his own heart racing not just from the physical exertion but from the swell of something deeper purpose. Before Jake could catch his breath, the town's fire chief approached, concern etched on his face. "You did an incredible thing, Jake. We thought no one could get in there," he said, respect spilling over in his voice, but it was the skeptical voices in the crowd that broke through, murmurs of why was he even here? And is he being hailed a hero for just doing his job? That filled the air. The flash of judgment swept over him like the flickering flames he just escaped. "Why didn't you just let the professionals handle it?" An older woman asked, her voice sharp, cutting through Jake's resolve. Her words felt like another layer of smoke filling his lungs. His heart sank. He glanced at Lily, who met his gaze with wide, trusting eyes. "I couldn't just stand back," Jake said, pain lacing through his voice. "She needed help and I remembered what it felt like to be in the fight, to be responsible for someone else's life." The fire chief placed a hand on Jake's shoulder as the townsfolk resumed murmuring among themselves, wrestling with their disbelief and admiration. It was a hard moment being honored while being judged. Jake had saved a life, but part of him felt like he was being dragged back into the battlefield. The war wasn't over, it had simply changed its form. Jake looked back at Lily, now snuggling against him, her small size eclipsed by the weight of the world on his shoulders. This was more than a fire, it was a turning point for him and for the community. "You're brave too, Lily," he whispered, brushing a hand through her hair. "You did great. Are you a hero now?" she asked, blinking up at him as if searching for the answer in his eyes. He chuckled softly, a bittersweet smile emerging. "I'm just someone who knows what it means to fight," he replied. But deep down, he knew that perhaps today marked a small step in reclaiming that title, however hesitant the town might be to grant it. With the sirens now fully blaring in the background, the paramedics arrived and Jake felt himself being pulled back into the reality of their roles. He watched as they took Lily, checking her over with practiced urgency. Jake stood, automatically smoothing out his jacket, trying to brush away the awkwardness clinging to him like ash. Just as he thought he could slip into the background of the crowd again, he caught the intense gaze of a mother standing nearby, her child clinging to her leg. She stepped forward, eyes glistening. "You saved her," she said, the gratitude shining through her voice. "Thank you." But could gratitude overpower the scars of skepticism from others? Could one act of bravery be enough to rewrite a deeper narrative? As Jake felt the swell of emotions crash within him, another pulse of hope ignited. Would this moment reshape how the community viewed him? Before he could digest any of it, a sudden sound broke through, a blare of the horn, then the electric hum of a new arrival. From the laughter to uncertainty, Jake's courage would surely be tested once more. What other secrets lay hidden beneath the surface of their town? Jake's mind raced as he watched the paramedics work on Lily. Every beeping monitor, every flick of a clipboard, felt like a drumbeat pushing him toward anxiety. She looked small surrounded by the tall figures in blue uniforms, her tangled hair framing her pale face. Beside him, Duke shifted uneasily, sensing his owner's tension. He nudged Jake's leg gently, as if to remind him that he wasn't alone in this battle. Jake reached down to scratch Duke's ears, a small reminder of the loyalty that had seen them through many tough days. "We did okay, buddy," he said softly, though the question of what's next loomed larger than ever. The murmurs from the crowd pressed at him, questions swirling in an endless loop. What if something had gone wrong? Why didn't she just wait for help? A knot twisted in Jake's stomach as he recalled how close they had come to losing Lily. He could still feel the heat of the flames, the dread that clawed at him when he realized no one else was going to act. He shook his head, trying to push the images away. But guilt clung stubbornly, like smoke in his lungs. A voice broke through his thoughts. Jake! It was one of his old army buddies, Tom, pushing through the crowd. His face beamed with pride, but concern flickered in his eyes. Man, that was incredible. I can't believe you rushed in like that. Just did what I thought was right, Jake murmured, still not feeling the weight of heroism resting squarely on his shoulders. Right or not, you put yourself in danger. You saved that girl, Tom insisted, clapping Jake on the back. You should be proud. The words made Jake uncomfortable. Pride was a heavy mantle, and he had always worn it too loosely. Maybe. But what if I hadn't made it in time? What if someone else had gotten hurt? Tom shook his head. You can't think like that. You did your part. As they spoke, a new figure emerged from the thinning crowd, a woman in a floral dress who looked eerily familiar. Her warm hazel eyes met Jake's. Jake, I'm sorry for the way some people have reacted. This town can be judgmental, but we also know a hero when we see one. Do we? Jake replied, crossing his arms defensively. Words are easy, but they don't fix the damage. I know, but truly, your actions spoke volumes, she replied softly. I've seen the scars you bear, and I don't judge you for it. Instead, I admire that you still fight. You fought for Lily today, and that is what matters. Behind his stoic exterior, emotions churned. The warmth of her support softened the edges of his heart, but the shadows of the past crept back. What if it was just luck? What if someone doesn't see this as a brave act? People will always talk, she said, her voice soothing. But regardless of their thoughts, you've shown us a side of courage we didn't know you had. Not everyone can be that brave, especially when the flames are real. Jake caught a glimpse of Lily, now in the paramedic's arms, her face turning toward him as if sensing his need for connection. She raised a tiny hand, the innocence in her eyes dispelling the fog of doubt. Reassurance washed over him, reminding him why he fought, but as his heart settled, a cry echoed from the back of the crowd. Look! The fire, it's spreading again. Jake's heart raced anew. The danger hadn't left. A new urgency thrummed through him as the flames flickered with determination. What resolution could be found in this swirl of emotions and chaos? Would today's act be the beginning of something extraordinary or simply another chapter in a wrecked life? As he looked toward the flames, the flickering light dancing beneath the darkening sky, Jake took a deep breath. He had faced fire once, but now he had to do it again. Courage surged within him, unfurling like a banner. As he moved purposefully toward the chaos, he couldn't help but wonder, could anyone else rise in the face of danger when it really counted? Jake's feet pounded against the asphalt as he raced toward the flames, Duke sprinting alongside him, his strong body a comforting presence in the chaos. The shouts from onlookers echoed all around, a dissonant choir of fear and uncertainty. He could see the flames licking upward, hungrily devouring everything in their path. It was a sight he had faced before, but this time he had to confront it with the intention of saving more than just his own heart. Scan the area. He shouted to Duke, who immediately took off to sweep through the smoke and shadows, his nose working overtime as he detected the scent of danger. Jake's heart hammered in his chest, urgency clawing at his throat. He had to find anyone trapped in that inferno, to pull them back from the brink. Just moments ago, he had felt the warmth of camaraderie, but it was gone now, replaced by the cold grasp of duty. In the back of his mind, thoughts of Lily lingered. She'd been so close to losing everything today. That sweet innocence, now wrapped in blankets and carried away from the blaze, was a reminder of why he had taken that leap into the fire. He pressed on, focusing on the task at hand. They reached the edge of the flames, a wall of orange and yellow that danced dangerously against the darkening sky. Just ahead, a horrified figure stood frozen, a woman with tears streaming down her face, staring at her house consumed by flames. "My sister. She's in there," she cried out, pointing toward the house. Without hesitating, Jake surveyed the raging inferno. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, to save himself, but then he remembered Lily. He remembered the innocence he had just fought for. "Duke, stay close," he yelled, pushing forward. The heat was intense, wrapping around him like an unwelcome embrace. The woman followed him, urgency blurring the edges of her fear. "Please. We have to hurry." Jake nodded, determination flooding his veins. They charged inside, the smoke tangling with the crisp air of the late afternoon. It clawed at his throat, but he ignored it, focusing solely on finding the girl trapped within the blaze. "Riley. Where are you?" The sister screamed, desperation growing as they searched. It felt like an eternity. The crackle of flames was louder now, the heat increasing as sections of the ceiling buckled under their pressure. Jake's lungs felt heavy, but he pushed himself through. Suddenly, a faint whimper broke through the roar of the fire, guiding him like a beacon. "This way." He dashed toward the sound, the walls threatening to collapse around them. Duke was right at his side, leading the way through the oppressive smoke. They found her, a small girl curled in the corner of a room, fear etched on her face. "Riley!" the sister shouted, rushing to the child, but Jake took a moment to assess the situation. He dropped beside her, the pounding in his heart like a war drum. "Hey, it's going to be okay. I'm here to help you. Can you stand?" The girl nodded weakly, tears glistening in her big eyes. As they began to move, the world outside erupted in chaos, but inside, something stirred, a flicker of hope. With one hand, Jake guided Riley, while his other arm swept around the sister to shield her from falling debris. Together, they stumbled back through the now smoke-filled room, working against time and fire. Outside, the crowd had grown, and the voices melded into a symphony of anxious relief. They made it through Jake, Duke, and the sisters, stepping from the shadows into the blinding light of safety. But before he could catch his breath, another fear gripped him. "Is anyone else inside?" he gasped, the question hanging heavy in the air. As the flames crackled behind them, Jake knew he had only begun to face the dark. How many more were in danger? And was he ready for another fight? In that moment, beneath the cacophony of sirens and the weight of their fragile lives, Jake felt both the thrill of survival and the dread of what lay ahead. In his heart, he was still wrestling with hope and uncertainty, asking himself, would the fire consume the past he couldn't escape? Jake's heart raced as he scanned the scene outside the house, the sirens echoing like a wailing chorus in the distance. The frantic energy of the crowd mixed with the thick smoke rising from the ruins, blending fear with sparks of hope. The sisters were safe, but Jake felt the weight of the unknown pressing heavily on him. "Are you both okay?" he asked, brushing soot from his hands and feeling his breath come in ragged gasps. The woman nodded, but her eyes glistened with worry. "We need to find Mom. She went upstairs. I thought she was safe." "Mom." The word struck a chord within him, amplifying the urgency pulsing through his body. "Stay here," he instructed both of them, a steady resolve filling his voice. Duke bounced on his paws, his golden coat shimmering even through the haze, ready for action. Without waiting for a response, Jake slipped back into the smoky darkness. Each step forward might lead him into another world of devastation, but he steeled himself. The lives dependent on him pulled him further in. Inside, the fire raged with an indescribable roar. The heat wrapped around him like crackling chains, panting flames pressing closer with every breath. Jake moved carefully as the floor creaked ominously beneath his weight. "Duke, find her!" he shouted, leaning into the wall for support. The dog darted deeper into the smoke, distinguished only by his deep growls. Jake followed his instincts in a headlong rush, calling through the chaos, "Ma'am. Can you hear me?" A moment of silence felt like an eternity. Then a voice, faint but clear, broke through the heat and crackle. "Yes. I'm in here." The voice was trembling, nearest to a whimper, but there was strength in it. Jake steeled himself through the disorienting despair and rushed toward the sound, ducking under charred beams and pushing through the thick curtain of smoke. He recoiled at the unbearable heat radiating from the walls, but the urgency of duty sharpened his focus. He was doing this for them, for every life threaded together. In a bedroom swallowed by darkness and fire, he found her, a woman, crouched against the wall, clutching a blanket as flames licked just inches away. "Are you hurt?" he asked quickly, moving closer into the inferno. "No. But I can't breathe." Fear clawed at her words. Jake quickly assessed her, then turned to his faithful partner. "Duke, get here." Both dog and master sprang into action. Without hesitation, Jake knelt next to her, urgently covering her mouth with the wet edge of his shirt. "Just breathe. Stay low." Duke leaped in, creating a barrier as they started to crawl toward the door, inching away from danger with each gasping breath. The feeling of her panic echoed in his own chest. Each scrape against the floor was a reminder of how fragile safety was. They made it back to the living room, a distance that felt too long. Flames flickered around them, shadows dancing wildly with impending doom. "We're close," he shouted, hoisting her with surprising strength, locking her arm around his shoulder. He could feel the heat tracing behind them like a pursuer. Just then, a burst of flame flared, collapsing the entryway. They were close, but too close. He pushed onward, dragging them through the chaos. Outside, they finally burst into the fresh air. Jake stumbled, his hands shaking, but as he glanced over his shoulder and saw Duke guiding the way, he felt that flicker of hope reignite. He set her down, looking her in the eyes. "You're safe now," he assured, trembling with relief, and just then, he caught the sight of the sisters watching him, their faces a canvas of gratitude and shock, all while the crowd erupted with a mix of tears and applause. But Jake's gaze quickly shifted back to the house, still raging and crying out for more victims. "We need to check for anyone else," he yelled, determination surging once more within him. The fire was not finished yet, and as he squared his shoulders for another push back into the inferno, he wondered, had he truly lost sight of what he was fighting for? Or would tonight cost him more than he could ever repay? As he stepped forward, the flames danced higher, taunting him with the peril that lay ahead. Jake took a deep breath, the acrid smoke cutting into his lungs like knives, but he refused to let that stop him. Tears blurred his vision, not only from the burning air but from the hope that flickered within him. He was still needed. Both women were safe, but there could be others trapped inside. With every step he took back into the flames, memories of the sisters' faces flicked in and out of his mind, urging him forward. "Duke!" he called, his voice nearly swallowed by the roar of the fire. The golden retriever reappeared, his brown eyes filled with unwavering loyalty. Together, they plunged into the fray again. Jake felt the heat curling around him, a living thing that reached out like a claw. He pushed past broken furniture and glowing embers, squinting through the smoke. "Ma'am. If anyone else is in here, shout," he yelled, hoping his voice would break through the chaos. Yet, the only sound that answered was the hissing of the flames and the crackle of wood collapsing. The scene shifted around him, shadows dancing as light flickered with a violent energy. He scanned the walls, looking for signs, thinking of the moments when everything could shift for better or worse. "I can't lose anyone else," he whispered to himself, hoping the quiet prayer would carry more weight. Duke led the way, his body low to the ground as he navigated the debris. Jake followed closely, his hands outstretched, grazing the walls to steady himself. Suddenly, a distant thud echoed through the flames, a noise that sent a fresh wave of adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Duke, this way." He charged in the direction of the sound, his heart drumming in his chest. Each footfall felt heavier, burdened by the stakes. What if they didn't make it out? Then he heard faint cries. "Please. Help." Jake's heart nearly stopped. "I'm coming. Just hold on." He forced his way through a narrow passageway, squeezing between a fallen beam and a fiery curtain of flames. Duke stayed close, his quick movements a constant reminder they were a team, bound by loyalty and purpose. As he busted through a door, he found a small room bathed in shadows and chaos. A girl no older than 10 was huddled in the corner, tears streaking her soot-covered face. Her wide eyes reflected terror, and her voice quivered just above a whisper. "I thought I'd die. No, you're okay. I've got you." Jake rushed over, constructing a wall of calm amidst her storm of fear. He crouched down, meeting her gaze. "We're going to get out of here, I promise." The girl reached for him, her hands trembling. "But the fire, Duke, and I will protect you. Just stay close." He could feel the heat radiating from behind him, sensing time slipping away, and it propelled him into action. He needed to move, to keep them safe. Jake carefully helped the girl stand. He could feel her heartbeat, rapid and wild, matching his own. As they moved toward the exit, chunks of the ceiling began to rain down, debris crashing like thunder. Bracing himself against the oppressive weight of smoke, he pushed forward. Just before reaching the door, a deep crack echoed, splintering the frame. "Get down!" he shouted, instinctively shielding her with his body. He felt the rush of heat blast over them as flames burst through the opening behind them. "Now, run!" he yelled, grabbing her hand and racing toward the light. Together, they barreled into the chaos of the outside world. The fresh air slapped him in the face like a long-lost friend. He blinked away the smoke and stared at the girl beside him, only now realizing the danger they had escaped together. Before he could catch his breath, a deafening cheer erupted from the crowd, their relief pouring out strong. But Jake only had eyes for the girl, and when she threw her arms around him, he felt the weight of gratitude settle firmly upon his heart. Yet, through the applause, his eyes were drawn back to the house. Were there still others trapped? Before he could shake off the déjà vu of desperation, he spotted a flicker of movement inside. "We need to do this again." Jake's resolve hardened. The night wasn't over, and neither was the fight. But what lay ahead? Would the inferno claim any more souls before he could close the door on this nightmare? Jake took a shaky breath, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. He had just faced the suffocating heat and rescued a girl, but fear clawed at his mind again. What if there were still more people trapped inside? He turned back, glancing at the house that seemed to pulse with a life of its own, flames licking greedily at the night sky. Duke stayed close, his fur ruffled by the wind, as if he understood the stakes. "Stay by my side," Jake murmured, his heart a drumbeat of determination. He knew every second mattered. He broke into a sprint toward the front of the house. The cheers behind him faded, replaced by the crackling fire and the ominous creaks of the structure. "Anyone in there?" he shouted again, louder this time. "We're here to help. If you can hear me, respond." The silence was almost worse than the roar of the flames. The house groaned and shifted, a reminder that time was quickly running out. As he reached the front door, Jake's eyes caught the reflection of flames through a small window. The room inside looked unrecognizable, only shadows and flickers. He hesitated for a brief moment, envisioning the implications of his next move. "I need to go in again," he said firmly, convincing not just himself, but Duke too. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open, the heat washing over him like a wave. He fought against the fire's chaos, feeling each step anchor him deeper into his purpose. "Duke, search!" he commanded. The golden retriever darted into the smoke-filled room, his nose to the ground, alert. Jake felt a flicker of hope as he fought through his fears. But doubts crept in. What if he exposed himself too much? What if he was too reckless? Was it worth risking his life for someone he didn't even know? Just as those thoughts rooted themselves, he heard a soft whimper. "Is anyone in here?" he called. No answer came, only the sound of flames devouring more of the home. Jake pressed on, the acrid air thickening around him as he stumbled into the next room. Suddenly, Duke stopped, his body tense, ears perked up. "What is it, boy?" Jake whispered. The dog backed up slightly, signaling an unseen presence. Jake tuned in. There it was again, that small sound of distress. Jake rushed toward the source, his heart raced as he approached an adjacent room. More shadows twisted against the flames, but through the haze, he caught sight of a figure. "Hello. I'm here." He dashed in, his arms stretching out toward what appeared to be a man slumped near a table, unconscious and surrounded by debris. "Jake!" A new voice erupted from behind him, barely audible over the inferno. It was the girl he rescued earlier, her small frame silhouetted at the doorway. "There's another person in here. Please." Without thinking, Jake knelt beside the man and felt for a pulse. Weak and slow. "I found someone. Need your help, get in here." The girl hesitated at the entrance, her eyes wide with fear. "But it's too dangerous," she protested. Jake turned back to her, a sense of urgency burning within him. "You've already made it out once. You can do this. You need to trust me." He extended his hand. She hesitated but stepped forward, each move a battle against the instinct to flee. The flames roared, but determination sparked in her eyes as she joined him. Together, they hoisted the man, trying to maneuver through the wreckage. With every groan of wood and crackle of flames, Jake knew they were running out of time. He could feel the walls closing in, the air was thick with both smoke and dread. He glanced back, searching for a way out. As they reached the doorway, a loud crack echoed above them. "Get down!" Jake shouted, diving for cover and pulling the girl down with him. The ceiling beam splintered and fell where they had just stood. "Now! Run!" Jake yelled, grabbing the man's arm and dragging him out into the night. In the fresh air, the world felt different, alive. But Jake's heart sank when he heard more cries coming from inside. There could be more lives at stake. Could he really go back in? He looked at the girl and Duke, who remained steadfast at his side, waiting for his next move. He felt their courage in his hands. Where there's life, there's still hope. Jake took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle ahead. One more time. But would this final push bear the weight of success, or would fate twist cruelly once again? Jake took another deep breath, feeling the burn of smoke still clinging to his lungs. He didn't have time to think, heart racing as he turned back toward the inferno. Duke growled softly, sensing Jake's uncertainty. "Let us do this, buddy," he said, squeezing Duke's fur, finding strength in the familiar warmth. He dashed toward the house again, flames roaring as if it were a beast ready to consume him. Each step felt heavier than the last, but the cries echoed louder, pulling him closer. There had to be someone else. Someone who couldn't escape alone. The heat intensified as he stepped through the threshold. The disorienting swirl of smoke and fire made it tough to keep his bearings. He squinted against the glowing chaos, desperate to find a sign, a flicker of movement. "Is anyone here?" Jake shouted, his voice almost swallowed by the ferocity of the blaze. Silence wrapped around him, thick as the smoke, and doubt suddenly felt heavier. What if he failed? Would he really risk it all, again? "Duke! Search!" Jake commanded, his voice steely despite the uncertainty. Duke sped off, becoming engulfed in the chaos without hesitation. Moments felt like hours, and the terrible things his mind conjured filled the air like the smoke that invaded his lungs. Then came a whimper, a desperate sound that cut through the fear. Jake followed Duke's lead, navigating through fallen furniture and the scattered remnants of what used to be a home. The smell of burnt wood and melting plastic clawed at him, but he pushed through, fueled by adrenaline and hope. There, in a corner, another shadow this time, a small child, trembling under a table, tears streaming down her soot-streaked face. I'm here. Jake called, his heart swelling. I'm coming. The child flinched as Jake approached but didn't back away. She must have sensed he was there to help. He crouched low, trying to appear less intimidating as he stretched an arm toward her. It's okay. You're safe now. We'll get you out. The girl peeked out, her eyes wide and filled with fear. But it's too hot, she whispered, glancing up at the flames licking the ceiling. Trust me, Jake said, his voice gentle but firm, you have to trust me. We can do this together. As if affirming his words, Duke nudged her hand gently. With a little nod, the girl took his hand, trembling but willing to escape. They retraced Jake's steps, weaving through fragments of the house. The heat was unbearable, each moment felt precarious. Suddenly, Jake heard a loud crack. Panic hit him like a punch to the gut. Run! Get to the door now! He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, the girl's small hand gripped tightly in his. They sprinted toward the sunlight, the fresh air just beyond the flames. As they burst through the front door, Jake pulled the girl close, shielding her from the roar of the fire. They tumbled into the open, landing hard on the ground. Duke was right beside them, wagging his tail, hopeful amidst the chaos. Is everyone out? Jake gasped, panic threading through his voice as he searched. The cries from the house transformed into a chorus of anxious murmurs from those gathered outside. I think so, but the girl whimpered, what about the man you saved? Jake's heart sank. He had pulled the man out, but could he really call it enough? Were others still trapped inside? His thoughts raced, but deep down, he felt a flicker of something courage, perhaps. Thanks to the girl, he wasn't alone in this fight. Stay here, he directed firmly, eyes fixed back on the fire. I'm going in again. The girl's eyes widened. But, no. Someone else might need help, Jake insisted, resolve hardening his voice. With every step back toward the inferno, he asked himself again, could destiny twist cruelly once more, or could he, with a little help from his friends, turn the tide? Would this be the moment that defined their lives? The flames crackled behind him as he re-entered the chaos, leaving the outside world behind once more. And as he pushed through the smoldering wreckage, something deep inside whispered, every life matters. Would Jake find what he sought, or would fate turn its cruel hand once more? The heat was a constant reminder of the danger ahead, but Jake pushed forward, fueled by purpose. Each step into the collapsing house felt like venturing deeper into a living nightmare. Embers floated like fireflies around him, and the acrid smell choked him, yet he pressed on. Duke, stay close, he whispered, his heart racing. The dog, sensing the urgency, stayed right by his side, ready for whatever lay ahead. They moved through what remained of the hallway, walls sagging, threatening to give way. With each crack of settling beams, Jake felt the weight of time squeezing around him. He could still hear the voice of the little girl, clutching his heart like a vice. The thought that someone else might need him sharpened his resolve, another call for help echoed, this one louder and more desperate. Heart pounding, he followed the sound, unsure if it was even the right direction. I'm coming. Just hold on. He shouted, his voice trembling as he stumbled over a fallen chair. Duke. The dog took the lead, sniffing the ground intently, ears perked. Jake could see the flames nearing, crackling hungrily above him. Lifting his shirt over his mouth, he forced himself to breathe through the fabric. The fire danced in front of him, obstacles rising like monstrous shadows. Ground level. Jake hollered, remembering the training that guided him through these dark moments. Stay low, preserve oxygen, stay alive. The thought kept racing through his mind as they crawled toward the sound. Then, just ahead, another shadow against the blazing inferno, a man, struggling to push his way out of heavy debris. Jake's pulse quickened. Hang on. I see you. But the man looked dazed, struggling. Panic surged through Jake. Duke! Help him! With a surge of instinct, the dog dashed towards the man, barking and nudging him with urgency. The man blinked, grabbing onto Duke's collar as if it were a lifeline. Let us go. Grab my hand. Jake shouted, reaching out. He could hear the creak of the structure behind him, and every second felt heavy. Coughing, the man lunged for Jake, his grip like iron. Together, they pulled against the collapsing mass of the house. Duke continued to bark, urging them toward safety. Now! Jake yelled, their bodies scraping against the rough, charred remnants. They sprinted toward the exit, sweat streaking down their faces, the heat pushing them forward. They stumbled out into the open air, gasping, collapsing onto the grass outside. The man fell away, breathless, while Duke panted happily, licking the friend's face. Jake, thank you, the man gasped, eyes glazed but filled with gratitude. I thought I wouldn't make it. But just as relief washed over Jake, the reality sank in again the little girl. She had to be okay, but the worry knotted in his gut as he looked back toward the house. Is everyone late? They're still inside. A voice cried out, desperation sharp as a knife. A distressed woman pushed her way through the crowd, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. Dread settled over Jake. There could still be others trapped inside, but how many? I'll go, he said, urgency tightening his throat. No. It's too dangerous. The woman pleaded. I can't leave anyone behind, he insisted, resolve blazing in his chest. Glancing around, he saw the community working together, but could he stand idly by when others needed him? Duke, we're going back, Jake said with startling clarity. As they began to retrace their steps, everything felt heightened, every crack, every shout blending with the raging flames behind him. The rage of the fire felt personal now, as if taunting him, daring him to cross back through its fiery embrace. Would he find others calling for him? How many cries would fill his ears once he re-entered? The only path forward was along the familiar darkness once more, deeper this time. The question loomed heavy before him: could his heart withstand the weight of another life needing saving? Jake raced back into the inferno, the flames threatening to engulf him. Each breath he took felt like a risk, the fire crackled menacingly, casting eerie shadows in the dim light. But he couldn't turn back. Not now. The voices, the cries echoed relentlessly in his heart, fueling his determination. Duke, find them! He shouted, his voice ringing out amidst the chaos. Duke, ever loyal, dashed into the smoke, nose low to the ground and ears perked for any sign of life. Heart pounding, Jake followed, pushing deeper into the path of destruction. They had done this before, they could do it again. Is anyone here? He called, his words barely audible over the roar of the flames. Silence hung thick in the air, but he couldn't allow himself to fall into despair. He had fought for his brothers and sisters in arms. Today, he would fight for these unknown souls too. Just then, a muffled voice broke through the haze, weak but desperate. Help! Please! Jake's heart leapt at the sound. I'm coming! He pushed through debris and chaos, navigating through the smoke that wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket. Duke, stay close! The dog bounded ahead, leading Jake to a room void of light yet thick with the heat of the fire. The shadows twisted around him, creating a semblance of shape, and he squinted into the darkness. There, in a corner, was a figure, a woman, kneeling and coughing as thick smoke filled her lungs. Are you all right? Jake rushed over, reaching her just as the heat intensified. We need to move. The woman looked up, panic flickering in her eyes. My daughter. She's still inside. His heart sank, the weight of her fear sinking into his chest. Where? That room. The fire, it's too much. Jake's resolve hardened. We can do this. You have to trust me. Let us go find her. He grabbed her hand, pulling her with him as he turned back into the blaze. Stay low. Breathe through your shirt. They fell back into the chaos, Duke dashing ahead, guiding them with found purpose. The heat pressed against them like a tormented beast, but they pressed on. They stumbled through, past flaming remnants of memories and lives, calling out, searching. Is anyone in there? Jake shouted again. A faint whimper echoed back, a child's whimper. Mommy. Duke. The sound is coming from over there. Jake urged, moving toward the cries. When they reached another room, there crouched a small girl, clutching a stuffed toy, her eyes wide with fright. I'm scared. Jake's heart cracked. You're safe. We're here to get you out. He knelt beside her, his eyes gentle yet commanding. Duke's going to help us. Can you stand? Tears streamed down the girl's soot-streaked cheeks. But the fire, he reached for her, pulling her close as he offered a comforting smile. I promise, we'll move slow and stay low. I won't let anything happen to you. She hesitated but finally took a shaky breath and nodded. As they stepped outside the door, a loud crack ricocheted through the building. Run! Jake shouted, adrenaline pulling them toward safety. They raced back through the chaos, flames licking at their heels like hungry predators. Finally, they burst into the open air, collapsing onto the ground. Relief flooded Jake's body as he felt the cool breeze against his burning skin. The girl turned toward him, and he took a second to catch his breath. You did great. As the grateful tears streamed from the girl's eyes, he looked back, searching the chaos. His gaze locked onto the woman and her daughter, now reunited, but there was still uncertainty. The night wasn't over. The crowd had thickened with anxious faces, but Jake knew they expected more. He felt the eyes on him, heavy and scrutinizing. Would this moment define him? Would he take responsibility again? Let us go. Is anyone else inside? He called out, determined, zeroing in on his mission. Empowerment surged through him, he could be their protector. We're going back. He looked to Duke and the grateful faces behind him. Are you with me? They nodded, the unity weaving through the crowd like a thread of hope, and with that, Jake dove back into the inferno. Each step resonated with purpose, an unyielding fight against fate, proving every life mattered. As flames danced, he felt light on his feet, propelled by the hope of redemption and courage that would not die. In the end, the fire would capture only what it was meant to. Jake would save more lives, reclaiming his identity one act of bravery at a time. The real battle was not against the flames but against the shadows of doubt within himself. Courage was a flame that burns brightly, even in the darkest moments. Now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.